Thank you. And thank you for the great talks before me. These are tough acts to follow, but I'll try my best. I'm doing something a little different for this presentation than I normally would. I'm going to read, and I'm really kind of reading a story of how the maps that I'll share at the end came to be. And much like you guys have probably been doing for the rest of the session, I'm going to ask you guys to not just think with me through this, but to also feel with me through this presentation. So while my name takes up space under the title of this piece, and my voice is ultimately narrating the story, I alone cannot take full credit for the work displayed on these pages. It is and continues to be an intellectual and emotional partnership between myself, the participants, the folks who have listened, pushed, and encouraged me, and those who may encounter it and attach their own meanings, conclusions, and potential critiques. It is not a novel concept that geography is the most personal thing we experience in life, while also being heavily communal as we experience it within multiple layers of geographic materials and imaginations. These layers, speaking in conversation with and taking inspiration from King's Black Shoals, are liminal, intermediate, and hard to map. As an ecological region, the shoal is composed of both land and sea. The unstable ground of two worlds blending acts as an in-between, requiring new footing, different chords of embodied rhythm, and a new conceptual tool to navigate its terrain. It is a place where an adjustment must be made in order to move forward in the voyage. The shoal is where I situate myself. It is where I question from, where I build upon, and where I ask people to encounter other bodies in alternative ways. As such, I ask us to engage together, to situate our own bodies as cartographic actors. Situate yourself as a personal and intellectual agent with ties to this work, which ties to those who shared their stories for the sake of this work. Think of a scar on your body. I imagine a specific one or two come to mind. You remember it, feel it. It gives meaning to you as you give meaning to it. The scar in its materiality on the body acts as a retrieval cue. The cue incites a memory that has place, sound, smells, and time. It altered you, imprinted feeling on you, memorialized a time and place on you. You will never be the same again. This work is more than a set of perfectly curated research questions, methodologies, and theoretical lenses I encounter the world from. It is drawn from a broader hope and desire that bodies interacting with the material, virtual, and imaginary worlds will begin to interact differently, kinder, gentler, more empathetically, with inquiring minds to the stories embedded in, and carried with and through the body, which manifest as an object of deliberate ordering, simplistic in its form as we encounter them every day, with little thought to how they have come to be. Our bodies record history, often, but not always, not under conditions of our own choosing. Scars are physical markings left within bodily tissue where a wound once lay, and connective tissue, collagen, and elastin protein deficiencies now form. These markings record our history. Whether we choose their presence or they are inflicted upon us, not under conditions of our own choosing, these public displays speak meaning both to those bodies who hold them and those who may encounter them and attach new meanings. The body is an unresolved surface, purposeful, meaningful, alterable, and always unfinished. In the Anglo-American Academy, the body has been pursued, wanted, tugged, grasped, and torn apart. I follow Sinnott, Longhurst, and McKittrick in asserting that not only is it impossible, but also not necessarily all that useful to attempt to offer any absolute, complete, or exact definition of the body. A little later on, I'm going to show a gallery. The gallery includes a couple of pictures that were each created in order to embody the former present using QGIS and XYZ tiles. I took pictures of maps from participants of their scars and overlaid them onto the exact location that the scar first took place in. and so I'll share those in a bit. I wonder in all of my work and thought processes held in seminar spaces, in advising meetings, and amongst peers and colleagues who I grapple with aloud, who these conversations are for, and consequently, who the work is for. What is replicated and reproduced before the papers are written, before their maps are made, and before students get admitted into the metaphorical and literal confines of the academic space? Who holds the power to define it, the power to engage with it, the power to dismantle it? Who is this work for? In a way, me. I find joy in what I get to do every day. I purposefully only choose to work with ideas I love and find deeply inspiring. My gain emotionally, intellectually, socially, and financially cannot be understated in this space or in this work. Beyond my own investment, which is always real and propels all academic scholarship forward, I have intended to pose this work not to answer questions, but to mirror bodily cartographies with the material world, which remains in constant, transitional, and with no finality. This gallery was inspired by questions I do not believe, nor should they be disrespected through answering. This art installation is a constellation of stories, a collision of place and space, of harm, trauma, joy, tragedy, growth, and of past, present, and potential futures. I challenge notions of instability of mapping, of knowing, of the body, and of the ways each of these pieces intersects, unfolds, and refolds. As such, there is no end, no accurate conclusion, as this work is not centered on answering, but is about the processes and interactions that take place within it. Research is messy and uncertain, just as the body is messy and uncertain. And thus I am less interested in putting bodies into categories, and am more invested in what and who this research may touch more broadly, both inside and outside of academic spaces. After all, a body, even one that no longer feels like our own, are all that we own. I came here for a reason. Reasons I am still working through personally, professionally, and as a human being with my own complex body that manifests and understands differently from day to day. But nonetheless, I came here for a reason. My body both holds and fractures my identity. I dwell here and encounter the world here. Behind these walls, I bear myself to the world in the most intimate ways I am able. My body is riddled with scars that share stories of myself I, at times, wish were not a part of me, but other times cherish deeply. I come to this space with pre-existing notions of the body, of mapping, and of art. I reside here, take up space here, and ultimately this residence influences what encompasses the pages before you. This work is not objective, not pure, not complete. This work, like all others taking up residence with the Academy, rests on me as the researcher who brought these questions forth. The relationship with my own body, and thus the relationship I have formed with the body, are informed by my memories, the conversations held over cups of coffee in living rooms, and by the words spoken over me. The thoughts I carry about myself each manifest here, and although I cannot cite the passing conversations and shower thoughts that reframe my understanding of the world and of the body and of the map, I must give mention to their influence. Without them, this piece would look much different. I'm cognizant that simply stating these facts are not enough, and my cognition in and of itself is also not enough. In more conclusive terms, it is materially meaningless, and I continue to look for and engage in material meanings beyond publications and presentations, this gallery included. I have chosen not to include a conclusion, as for I wish for you to leave not with my final thoughts or assumptions, but with your own. Before we move into the space of viewing the gallery, I ask, does space begin, and why there? Does space end, and why here? Does the body begin, and why there? Does the body end, and why here? These questions of beginning and end become fractured here, messy, blended, and at times confused. I came here for a reason. We meet here together, you and me, with those who bore their bodies for the sake of my own curiosities and desires to create something more. You came here for a reason. So as I said, I'm not going to include like a conclusion. I'm not going to talk while I show the maps. I just have a couple. I'll just spend maybe like 20 seconds on each slide. As I said, they're pictures of scars that participants shared with me in journal diaries, and I have overlaid them onto the exact location that the scars first happened, and I've included just a little quote from each of the participants as well. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
We do have time for questions. Responses? Silence? I do have a question or comment. One of the things that's often struck me in looking at particularly looking at LiDAR, the really detailed relief imagery, is how a lot of the landscape of our cities looks like a scar. How the artificial lines of a road cut or a street cut, in my hometown particularly. And I wonder if you thought about that relationship between the earth scars and
Definitely so. There are actually a couple of artists out there who take maps like that you're talking about, scars in landscape or scars on maps, and create art through them. So that's definitely something that I've thought about, is blending somehow the two together. Yeah.
It's not a question. I just wanted to say that was very beautiful and moving, and made me feel a connection to the earth.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah.
Definitely echoing just gratitude for your work and sharing. Also, I wonder, as moved as I felt, how's been your experience with showing this work to participants themselves?
I love when people ask me this question, because this has been the best part of doing this, is I was actually able to frame all of these, get them printed, frame them, and give them back to my participants. And they expressed that the gallery and the pictures help them not only reassert autonomy over their own bodies and over, a body that no longer necessarily felt comfortable to them, but also reasserting autonomy over the places that the scars took place in. Sometimes childhood bedrooms and hospital rooms, they were able to kind of take this piece and reassert meaning over the things that have happened to them that were oftentimes traumatizing.